I don't care who your side is. It's pulling a gun out of your waistband, sticking it in your neighbor's face and saying, you're not going to eat that hamburger, or you're going to believe in Jesus Christ and we're shutting down this strip club.
Free Talk Live.
We're going to start out tonight with this idea of civil war, that it's coming back to the United States, and it's actually hitting the news. LMT Online looks like maybe Laredo, Texas area. Actually, they're syndicating a Washington Post story. And we've had people call in to suggest on this show that they believe that there's going to be a civil war. Now, getting them to kind of identify who the sides are in that civil war, things get a little bit
dicey.
Yeah.
I mean, is the South going to rise again? Is it the Republicans versus the Democrats? Is it the white people versus everybody else? You never know what somebody's pushing,
they're imagining
when they're pushing this civil war idea. And to me, it sounds ludicrous. I would agree that the political system in this country is so divisive. It's just it's just too much at this point for the average person to put up with, and they throw their hands in the air and say, screw it, I don't care anymore. And that's when people get these ideas of war. It certainly looks like the two sides, and there's always just two sides in these arguments, it seems. The two sides just can't get along. I was thinking today, by the way, who is the party of high IQ? Because we're told that the both sides, there's always a difference between the Republicans, the Democrats, the liberals, and the conservatives. You pick which one's the side of high IQ. Because I'm on that side.
Libertarians are pretty smart.
Well, yeah, you've picked it. The answer is the Libertarian Party, the third most popular party in the United States. The IQs of the voters and of the the people that they run for office tends to be significantly higher, but nobody listens.
But wait, has anybody actually studied that?
Yeah, somebody studied.
Somebody has. They've actually looked and they've tested IQs of Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians.
That's correct.
Huh? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was just speculating.
Well, I read it. I can go hunt it down for you in the break.
Well, what was the results between Republicans and Democrats?
It was about the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Normal. What would you expect? I mean, they got dumb people, they got smart people on both sides.
At a moment when the country has never seemed angrier, two political commentators from opposite sides of the divide concurred last week on one point. Nearly unthinkable until recently, the country is on the verge of civil war. The first came former U.S. Attorney Joseph DeNova, a Fox News regular and ally of President Trump, saying, quote, "We are in a civil war," he said. Further, quote, "The suggestion that there's ever going to be civil discourse in this country for the foreseeable future is over. It's going to be total war." Now, to suggest that civil war is going to happen suggests that actual violence is going to break out, that there's going to be some sustained violence.
Right. Politics is a threat on your neighbor. That much is true.
For sure.
Yeah. Anytime you employ the political process, you're willing to point guns at somebody and kill them over whatever the issue is that's at hand.
If you're trying to get your way, that is. I mean, some people try to get out of the... They try to use politics to avoid having guns pointed at them. They try to lessen the scope of government.
But that's still pointing a gun at somebody and saying, "Don't point a gun at me." Right?
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying it's immoral, because it's not.
Well,
you can pull a gun on somebody who's pulled a gun on you, but the government is a gun.
Yeah,
ultimately, at the end of the day, when the Green New Deal or the moral majority, I don't care who your side is, it's pulling a gun out of your waistband, sticking it in your neighbor's face and saying, you're not going to eat that hamburger, or you're going to believe in Jesus Christ and we're shutting down this strip club, or whatever it is. That's what it's all about. Because... when you employ the government, you employ the police. The police are people with guns. When somebody disobeys the police,
they will kill them if
they
necessary.
will ultimately, if necessary, kill them in the line of their duty.
It's sick. And it's something that, we all learned in preschool was not acceptable behavior.
Well, no, we learned that it's highly acceptable to the point that we normalize that behavior.
Well, no. We learned that you're not supposed to hurt your neighbor in preschool. You're not supposed to attack your friends that are the other people, even if they're not your friends, running around on the playground. We got this pretty early on. But what happened was the political process obscures the violence.
Yes.
Because people don't want to see the guns. While at some level they acknowledge the police have guns, they believe that, as long as they're good people and law-abiding, the guns won't be used against them. And, of course, As long as you do what you're told. As long as you pay what you're told to pay. As long as you jump through the hoops you're told to jump through, the guns won't come out.
Right. You're free. You're free to do exactly as we tell you. As long as you do exactly as we tell you, you live in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
It's true.
Obey, free person. Yeah. I mean, it's this amazing dichotomy that slides around in Americans' minds, and they simply can't see it.
It's sad stuff, and let's get back to the story here, because we're not going to end the coercive state tonight, unfortunately. So, he says there's going to be total war. The next day, Nicole Wallace, former Republican operative turned MSNBC commentator and Trump critic, played a clip of DeGenova's commentary on her show and agreed with him, although she placed the blame squarely on the president. Trump, she said, quote, greenlit a war in this country around race. And if you think about the most dangerous thing he's done, that might be it. What exactly? Now, look, I'm a critic of Trump, too. Okay, I'll try to compliment him if he does the right thing, and every now and then he does. But he's done plenty of things that are terrible, like killing innocent people in the Middle East, like his predecessors had done. But what did Trump do to greenlight a war around race exactly? Because weren't there race, kind of fueled riots going on during the Obama administration as well?
Yeah, I don't know. This is the narrative. So the Trump derangement syndrome, and I've tried my very best not to get involved in this. I didn't vote for Trump. Trump wasn't my guy by any stretch of the imagination. But I have grown to like him more simply because I feel like some of his policies make sense. Some of his policies are stupid. The idea of building a wall is dumb. You can't just build a $5 billion wall and leave it and not expect it to get torn apart. Yeah. I mean, they'll be at it with wire cutters and angle saws, the next day. Don't be stupid. It's a waste of money. You might call it a symbol, but I don't need your $5 billion symbol. Build a $1 million statue to Trump made out of gold in New York City. He'll be very happy. They'll be your symbol. Fine. But, when it comes to...
But that doesn't make him a racist. That's just wrong for him to advocate building a wall. It's
the idea is that he has said bad things about Mexicans, and that, Mexicans are a race, which, of course, they're not. They're a nationality. Yeah. There's all different races in Mexico, and they have different ideas. Different people in Mexico have different ideas about the races in Mexico.
Imagine that.
Right. Surprise, surprise. They've got their own ethnic issues in Mexico. Trump doesn't display anything other than sort of an older person's, like the older you get, the less people are willing to give you as any sympathy around race. So if you, like my father, who was one of the least racist guys I ever knew, he had, black guys would come out to the house and work in a time frame that people would not do that. He was the president of the union, and, he had black guys and white guys, and everybody got their vote and all that stuff. But he would use the term colored person.
Yeah.
And it was an old term.
He's older.
Yeah, he was an older guy, and they used an older term. And
my grandmother did that, and she wasn't a racist.
Right. I prefer to use the term black.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's shorter than American of sub-Saharan African descent. One syllable versus like a dozen.
And plus, we had a guy call in and tell us, a black guy called in once and told us that was his preference too.
Right. Well, I mean,
so I was like, okay, that's good enough for me.
But he doesn't get to say for the, he doesn't get to represent a race. And by the way, some people claim that, some people are parts of races and some people aren't. Who knows?
Plus, African American doesn't make sense anyway, because there's South Africans like Carla Garrick, the former president of the Free State Project. She's a white lady. She's African American. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Listening to WIBC in Indianapolis. Hello, Terry.
Yeah, well, like I say, your last guy that called, he was talking, and I've heard him several times now, y'all, where they've said, well, take away the internet and they'll scream and cry, and then all of a sudden the Civil War will be over. The internet has nothing to do with the Civil War that's coming.
You think there's one coming?
Oh, I know there's one coming.
What are the sides going to be? Who's going to be fighting?
Socialists and the rest of America who wants to be free.
So,
and if anybody can't see that coming, because I guarantee you, in 2020 or even 2024, you get a socialist Democratic Party in office, and they want to change all these rules. hell is going to break loose.
Now, wait a minute. Are you predicting that the socialists, who are already splintered into multiple groups, like if you look up the Socialist Party, you're going to find at least probably 3, if not more, different socialist parties out there. So are you saying that all these socialists are going to come together and literally fight a violent war against everyone else?
Well, your so-called Antifa people, they already think that's what they're fighting.
They think they're fighting they think they're fighting fascists, but I mean they're basically young people with pepper spray. I mean I'm not terribly scared of them.
Yeah, there's a little more than pepper spray. I've been to one of these places when they decided to come in and try to take over.
Really? What happened?
And trust me, they had some sticks and they had a lot more than a little pepper spray.
Okay.
And they actually hurt quite a few people.
Where were you?
And unfortunately,
where did this happen?
Up in Michigan.
Was it a rally of some sort?
We were in Detroit, and I didn't even realize that there was a rally or anything going on, and we kind of drove into it. And they literally beat the crap out of the car.
Wow.
And the guy that was with us was like, "Well, let me get you out of here." And all I could say is it was very irritating to see. They want to show up, they wear their little mask, they hide their faces. Hey, come on out here and trust me, when it comes to time for a real civil war, those little boys, they're going to learn really, really quick just what men are about.
I would agree with you on that statement, that if there was a war between sort of the right and the left in the United States, that it would be, as Loki said in Avengers, glorious, not lengthy. But it's like, just go to Google. Search, as long as we have the internet, we might as well use it. Go to Google, search Democrat voters, U.S. counties. And this is important. If you search states, you get a really unrealistic picture of the distribution of votes in this country based on, sort of liberal and conservative. And then consider that a lot of people who vote Democrat are not liberal. They're not socialist. Mm-hmm. They're, in many cases, ethnically disadvantaged and find the Democratic Party more palatable than the Republican Party. I don't think they should, but they do. And that's just a reality. So they're not going to fight for people who are spouting things that they disagree with necessarily.
You're right. They're not. And the group of people who are going to fight for the Democratic side are going to be the ones that are, and I say the Democratic side because this is, everybody puts it as Republican-Democrat war. It's not. It's socialist, and then the people who want to be free.
Right.
In America.
I'm with you.
Are there that many of those people?
There aren't, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Is those people don't?
There's
the
not
socialists
going to be a whole lot of them, except for maybe out in California.
Right. Well,
no, I don't mean socialists. I mean people that want to be free.
There's people who want to that claim.
There's a lot more people who want to be free than you think. And I'll guarantee you, they call for a civil war, and it comes to that. That's how we're going to fight. There's a lot of people that's going to show up that you never thought were going to come out of the woodwork. And that's exactly how it will be. They're laying low and quiet right now.
Assuming that Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. military all stay out of this fight, and it's just individuals, you look at this map and you will see that there is no way to hold for the Democrats. They have no base. There is no geographic location that they can really hold, except perhaps the sort of the tri-state area around New York City and
Chicago.
The edge in they can't hold Chicago.
Los Angeles?
And the edge out in California.
Thanks, Terry, for the call. There's
and they
more
won't
coming
win
up.
that.
It's Free Talk Live. Hour 2 is next. The idea of a civil war has once again been floated, this time in the Washington Post. And the suggestion seems to be that it's going to be race-based, but we haven't even really gotten into this story. We also had another guy call in saying he believes it's going to be the socialists versus the people that want to be free, that there's going to be some sort of fight that breaks out.
The people who don't want you to have guns versus the people who do want you to have guns. I wonder who's going to win.
Now, I don't know at what point you decide. I mean, is it sort of you're looking back at history that, that's when the war started, because it's got to be one of those things that's going to be hard to know when you're like, when does the civil war between the socialists and those who want to be free begin? What is the starting date? What is the first battle? What is the first fracas?
Well, I don't think it's going to exist.
No, I don't either.
I really can't answer any of those questions. But what I find is that, first off, people like this as a mental exercise. They like to think about it. And your mind needs to have things to work on. Goodness sakes, we have to, it has to have things to do. It's burning a lot of calories. It's got to have stuff to do. It's like having a own little treadmill, this whole idea of a civil war. And wars are far more interesting than peace. As a peace advocate, when you look at history, you don't look for, I wonder what created this peace. You're out there running around trying to think about who started the war? What would an alternate history be? What would it be like if this?
What if this other side won?
Yeah, right, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the interesting stuff. Wars are interesting. Peace is boring, and And you say that as a peace advocate. As a peace advocate, I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying that that's one of the things that I have to run up against as a peace advocate is that war is exciting, and I think that this is a shortcut in our minds to the politics that is to come. The socialists who are advocating for more government are in the government, and the government likes people that advocate for more government. And we, those that want less government, have a big fight ahead of us if we choose to fight it. And at this point, a lot of people who want less government, who don't want to be involved in the government, are not fighting it.
In Indianapolis, listening to WIBC FM. Hello, Bobby.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, what's on your mind tonight?
All right. Your one caller was talking about when a civil war will start between the capitalists and the socialists, free market capitalists and socialists. Well, don't all wars start when the first bullet's fired?
I guess
it did when the British fought the colonials, and the shot that was heard around the world. That's when the war starts, when that first bullet's fired.
Or they killed Archduke Ferdinand for, what was that, World War I? I think.
Yeah, that's what it's blamed on, but it's
Revolutionary War, wasn't it?
Well, he was talking about a different one.
Yeah.
But so maybe this, I mean, I'm certain a capitalist has fired a bullet or vice versa at a socialist at this point when, which one of these bullets, I think, is what Ian's asking.
Well, yeah, I mean, that first bullet fire is really what starts the war when they face off. And you was correct in another issue about the freedoms being slowly taken away, like a right to free speech and expression. You've got the politically correct crowd out there, been out there for years, trying to stifle free speech because they feel offended over something. The Constitution don't guarantee any American citizen the right not to be offended, but it does guarantee the right to free speech and expression. You've got the blacks up in the air over slavery. Well, slavery was a necessity back in those days.
It was certainly a reality.
Let me finish.
I'm happy to, but there's countries without slavery at the time.
Yeah. Well, prior to the Revolutionary War, the colonists was under British control.
Right.
British, Spaniards, and Frenchmen was over in Africa, and African leaders was slaying each other's tribes and taking their prisoners and selling them to the white men and Europeans in Africa who brought them to the United States.
Yep.
Well, at the time the Revolutionary War started, the colonists, they had an internal enemy called the black slave, who was fighting for the British, the French, and the Spaniards.
That's because the British were offering them. Well, the French were on the same side as the colonists.
The British.
The British and the French were not on the same side.
Either way, it was after the Revolution.
Well, the British were offering the blacks freedom in returning. You were saying they were offering
during the Revolutionary War.
To fight,
British, yep.
Yeah, the British was offering the blacks freedom to fight the Americans. They didn't even want them to be free, though. But now,
no, they just wanted some. They wanted some free
colonists.
labor and some free bodies that they can, send into conflict. But I mean, you're not making an argument that slavery was, what was the term you used? Necessary? What was the word?
It was a necessity. It was a necessity.
You have not made an argument for that. You've just simply told some of history.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. We're talking about the American colonists, the mindset of the American colonists. He's not only got to fight the British, and the Indians in America to get independence from the British Crown, but he's got to fight now the blacks. So as long as he keeps the blacks in slavery, he's got them under control. And it lasted all the way to the War of 1812.
That same colonist could have said that, hey, y'all are free if you fight for us. And that would have gotten the same result.
Could have, would have, did, but that didn't happen. It did not happen because they could no longer trust.
You're not making an argument that it was necessary.
And I don't view it as a necessity.
Thanks for the call tonight, Bobby. I appreciate it. Toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. It's a belief that was wrong, and it was widely held at that time.
Yeah, slavery didn't start at the American Revolution or at the colonizing of the United States.
It didn't finish at it.
Or any of those things. Slavery has been with us since the beginning of the Agrarian Revolution. Everybody who's listening to my voice has ancestors that are slaves. I know that I've got some Mongolian descent. I suspect that came at the time of Genghis Khan and some Eastern European ancestors. I suspect it was rape. I suspect some people were drug off and put into slavery. Slavery happened. I suspect my German ancestry was probably enslaved by the Romans. We're all sons and daughters of slaves and slave owners. So I think it's something that at some point we're going to have to put behind us. I'd like to see it put behind us. I really don't like this whole.
I'd like to see racism go away. I mean, not just put slavery behind us, but also see racism end, and further put the new form of slavery behind us, where the government essentially has enslaved everybody to some extent. Because as we pointed out earlier, if you don't do what they say, whether they be Republicans or Democrats, whoever they are in government or whatever country you live in, if you don't do what they say, they'll kill you. So you pay whatever they say to pay. You do whatever it is that they say to do. Meanwhile, you get to look after yourself. So that's one of the differences, right? You don't have to live on a specific plantation. You can kind of move between these larger plantations, right? Countries, as you might call them. But wherever it is that you live, there's somebody who's master. Somebody, and they don't ask you to call them master. It's usually your honor. It's usually, the man in the robe, right?
Yeah.
That's your honor.
Well,
sir.
Slavery exists today in the sense that what you're saying is it has morphed. That we now have an organization that claims some of the fruits of our labor. Mm-hmm. That organization is known as the state, right?
Different percentages in different places.
Right, different percentages in different places. But ultimately, you live on a piece of land and you're going to, as a result, you have to give some amount of your labor as some kind of tax for things that you don't necessarily use. The most just thing they can do is make it so that that the state, only covers the bare minimum of things, and that you pay for the things that you want, like schooling and whatever else it is, medical care and these kind of things. But the problem is that we're told over and over again that, well, poor people won't get these things. Well, do I have some obligation? Not to say that I'm not happy to pay for poor people to get things. We sponsored an orphanage in Uganda. But do I have an obligation to pay for a poor person in San Diego, but not an obligation to pay for a poor person in Tijuana? We started out the show talking about this so-called civil war that a lot of people have been talking about. In fact, one of our callers tonight believes that there's going to be a civil war. And of course, you always have to ask, well, what are the sides going to be? So it's always a question I ask. And he says it's going to be socialists versus those people in America who want to be free. That's correct. And he assured me that there are waves and waves of people in America that want to be free, and they're just laying low, waiting for the right moment to rise up and use violence against socialists. The problem is that people define freedom differently, Ian. They don't all define it as the way we define it. So,
Sure.
We define it as the ability to do what you want, so long as you don't harm somebody else.
Yeah.
And really what I believe he's talking about is these, conservative types. And I do believe there's more conservatives in America than there are liberals. That the Democratic Party has plenty of people who are conservative, socially conservative, that vote for it. It's just that the Republican Party has done a dismally bad job of marketing to people of other ethnicities. And that I don't
Not
see
only
that
marketing to young people as well. From what I've
that's
seen.
the problem.
Yeah.
The reason you can't market to young people is the Republicans have basically excluded, in many
Their friends.
their rhetoric. I should say this differently. They have given a platform in many cases to people who are clearly anti-gay, anti-ethnic, anti-whatever, that it's out there.
An unfun bunch of people.
Yeah, an unfun bunch of people, that's for sure. And you as a gay person, it doesn't really matter what the Democrats' politics are. You know
You're
that they
not saying
hate
you're
you
gay.
less.
Right.
Fine. And who cares if I'm gay? Does it make a difference? If I were gay, I would understand that the Democratic Party dislikes me less than the Republican Party does. So you can see that why they would choose the Democratic Party. And as somebody who may find their biggest issue, or one of their biggest issues, because a lot of people just vote a single issue. As their biggest issue may be people who are gay being treated fairly, well, they're liable to vote Democrat too, even if they don't believe the politics. Then the Democrats get to market their crappy politics to them.
Flea Market Penguin on the line on our Discord server. Hello there.
Hey guys, I just wanted to call. I'll make it quick. You guys said some really real stuff that, when we had the American Revolution, we overthrew the Americans at the time overthrew one set of rich people, and the next group of people weren't so much better because it was just another group of elites controlling. And then also, you were saying that the military, the war and welfare state, basically is basically a massive wealth transfer to the elites and everything. And it's just important to realize that when you say opposition to the state, you're not using the word government for a reason. The word government, the government is is politicians and bureaucrats. It's bureaucracy, and the government is powerless without the state, the banks, the resource industries, the heavy manufacturing, the telecommunications. So obviously, those things all kind of form the state, and they exist for each other in a mutual relationship. That's why you have to use Bitcoin to get out of the banks, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we all want decentralized solutions to all these interactions that we do with the tentacles of the state. But what I wanted to talk about is in regards to the race war thing is all these people calling in, these statists, calling in and saying, oh yeah, we're going to have a civil war because they just daring their political opponents to make a first move so they can have a shooting war and shoot all the people they disagree with, they don't like. It's dumb. Are we really going to shoot each other because of a marginal tax rate, or because of trans rights, or because of people's race or whatever's on TV? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not the issue at hand. It's not the real. That's not the real issue that's hurting our country, hurting our freedom, and dropping us further and further down the freedom rankings. It's not, we can have all the, like you said, we have the right to guns, we have the right to free speech, we have that because, the state says, we can have that much. But I mean, what's the real source of the problem? It's certainly not Democrats or Republicans, and they're not going to shoot each other. There's no way.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Not going to happen. There's way too much to enjoy about life than, starting some sort of a violent race war out there. I think over time people are coming together more so. I mean, as far as getting over racism, I think that's something that we can get past. Maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe in the next couple of generations or so.
Free Talk Live. Listen live 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, or grab the podcast. It's all at freetalklive.com.